Welcome to the training course Empathy and the Earth, part of the European Erasmus Plus initiative now, and No Other World. This workshop was created within the framework of the No Other World project, which is a partnership between 5 countries, high schools from Poland, Turkey, Finland, and Spain, and the Academy for Robotics and Innovations from Macedonia as a non-governmental organization. The course invites you to explore how empathy, for people, places, and the planet, can shape a more just and sustainable response to environmental challenges. Environmental education often focuses on data, policy, and science. While these are critical, they are not enough. True transformation begins with emotional connection. Empathy helps us feel the impact of climate change on communities, recognize the rights of nature, and act with a sense of care rather than compliance. This course is designed for educators, students, youth workers, and change-makers who want to bring a human-centered, emotionally intelligent approach to environmental action. Over 6 themed modules, you'll reflect, write, create, and collaborate, developing a personal relationship with nature and designing solutions rooted in compassion. This training is part of a broader European collaboration that connects outdoor education, well-being, and sustainability. Through storytelling, deep listening, and creative thinking, we will not only study the Earth, we will learn to speak with it. Join us in this journey. Because empathy is not a soft skill, it's a catalyst for meaningful environmental change. This course will be a journey into how empathy can shape our understanding and actions around environmental challenges. In this course, we're not only exploring the facts, we're cultivating connection. Because saving the planet isn't just about science, it's about stories, emotions, and relationships. In this course, you'll explore how empathy can be a guiding principle in how we address environmental issues. We'll use storytelling, reflection, and action to help you feel, understand, and respond to the world around you, from your local environment to global ecological systems. We begin by exploring how empathy can reshape our understanding of environmental issues. Rather than focusing only on facts and figures, we emphasize emotional awareness and human connection, which often drive more lasting engagement. We'll use storytelling, personal reflection, and group dialogue as tools to build those connections. These methods help participants not only understand issues but feel them, to see through the eyes of others, including non-human life. Finally, this course isn't just theoretical. Each learner will work toward creating a small community-based project. The goal is to apply empathy to real-world challenges, whether through education, advocacy, or creative expression. And leave the course with something meaningful to take forward. We begin by defining empathy and its significance in environmental work. Empathy allows us to step into the shoes, or roots, or wings, of others. It helps us recognize the emotional and moral dimensions of ecological crises. We'll look at how environmental harm impacts people, animals, and ecosystems, and why empathy can lead to deeper, more sustainable change. Empathy is the ability to feel what others feel, to imagine their experiences, understand their perspectives, and be moved to care. In the context of environmental challenges, empathy helps us go beyond statistics and headlines. It helps us connect emotionally with those who are suffering, human and non-human alike, and inspires us to act not out of guilt, but out of genuine compassion. Environmental empathy means caring for people affected by climate change, pollution, and habitat loss, especially those from marginalized or frontline communities. Understanding the emotional toll of losing homes, traditions, or landscapes due to ecological destruction. Recognizing non-human life, animals, forests, rivers, as deserving of moral concern and protection. Bridging divides by listening to others' lived experiences, even if they differ from our own. Empathy transforms environmentalism from a task to a relationship. It shifts the question from how do we fix the planet to who is hurting and how can we help, making our actions more inclusive, holistic, and human-centered. This week, you'll journal about a personal connection you've had with nature. When did you last feel part of the natural world, not separate from it? You'll also explore how emotion compares to data when it comes to motivating change. While you are watching the TEDxHSG talks suggested in this week's activities, you will hear how psychologist Katarina van Bronswijk explores how our emotional responses to climate change, such as anxiety, grief, anger, and even hope, can be harnessed to drive meaningful action. She argues that these emotions are not signs of weakness but natural, adaptive responses to an existential threat. By acknowledging and processing these feelings, individuals can transform them into motivation for personal and collective change. Van Bronswijk emphasizes that confronting our climate emotions can lead to greater resilience and a deeper commitment to environmental stewardship. She advocates for open discussions about these feelings, suggesting that sharing our emotional experiences can foster community support and empower us to take proactive steps toward addressing the climate crisis. This perspective aligns with broader research indicating that climate-related emotions can serve as catalysts for engagement and activism. For instance, studies have shown that feelings of climate anxiety and distress are common, especially among young people, and that these emotions can motivate individuals to participate in environmental initiatives and policy advocacy. For those interested in exploring this topic further, Van Bronswijk co-authored the book Climate Emotions, which delves into the psychological impacts of the climate crisis and offers strategies for coping and action. To watch Katarina van Bronswijk's full TEDx talk and gain deeper insights into how our climate emotions can be a force for positive change, you can view it in the video. This journaling activity invites you to slow down and reflect. Whether it's a moment in the forest, a memory by the ocean, or simply watching birds in the park, the goal is to remember and rekindle that feeling of connection. Explanation: my connection with nature. Objective: to help participants slow down and reflect on their personal, emotional relationship with the natural world, a foundational step in building environmental empathy. Why this matters: before we can advocate for or protect the environment, we must first feel connected to it. This activity encourages mindful observation and self-reflection, which are key to developing empathy not just for people, but for ecosystems, animals, and the planet as a whole. Instructions: participants are asked to take 10 to 15 minutes to journal about a time they felt emotionally connected to nature. This can be a recent moment, such as a quiet walk, a camping trip, or even a childhood memory involving a tree, animal, or landscape. They are encouraged to recall sensory details, what they saw, heard, smelled, emotions, and insights they experienced. Prompts you can offer: where were you? What made this moment feel meaningful? Did it change how you see the environment or your role in it? How can you nurture this connection in your everyday life? Example uses. This journal can serve as a personal grounding exercise at the start of the course, a conversation starter in small groups, a basis for storytelling in week 4, a way to reveal emotional barriers or motivations for environmental action. Outcome: by naming and exploring their connection with nature, learners begin to shift from abstract environmentalism to a more embodied, personal relationship with the earth, making their empathy-based action later in the course more sincere and sustainable. Take a moment to reflect on a time when you felt deeply connected to the natural world. It could be a walk in the woods, a memory from childhood, or simply watching a sunset. Use your journal to capture that moment with detail and emotion. Where were you? What did you see, hear, or feel? Why did it matter to you? This exercise helps ground your learning in personal experience, reminding us that caring for the earth begins with remembering we are a part of it. Here you can see example of journal written by an explorer walking in the nature. This forum activity invites participants to reflect on how we communicate environmental issues, and what actually motivates people to take action. We often rely on data, statistics, projections, scientific reports. But numbers can feel distant or overwhelming. On the other hand, empathy, hearing someone's personal story, seeing the emotional impact, often reaches us more deeply. Think about how a single photograph or a child's story can stay with you longer than a chart. I'll prompt learners to consider, which do you respond to more? A graph about rising sea levels, or a story about a family displaced by flooding? And how do we combine the two? In your responses, share examples from your own experience. Then respond thoughtfully to at least 2 peers. The goal isn't to choose one side, but to explore how empathy and data work together, and which is more effective in different contexts. Environmental issues don't affect everyone equally. This week, we explore how empathy helps us understand the experiences of those most impacted by climate change, pollution, and environmental degradation, particularly marginalized and frontline communities. We'll dive into the concept of environmental justice, learning to recognize and respect cultural, social, and historical contexts. By seeing the world through others' eyes, we become better listeners, advocates, and allies. Through stories and reflection, we begin to ask, whose voices are missing? Whose struggles are invisible? And how can empathy help bring them to the center? Week 2 focuses on environmental justice and the importance of listening to marginalized communities, those who face the most severe consequences of climate change, pollution, and displacement. We'll explore empathy not just as a feeling, but as a way of seeing. You'll watch a short documentary highlighting environmental injustice, then create an empathy map. This helps you understand the thoughts, emotions, and needs of someone directly affected by an ecological crisis. In this activity, you'll watch a short documentary that highlights how environmental issues disproportionately affect marginalized communities. This could be about polluted water in underfunded areas, rising heat in urban neighborhoods, or industrial waste near low-income communities. As you watch, I want you to pay attention not just to the facts, but to the people, their stories, their emotions, their resilience. Who is being impacted? What are their voices saying? What emotions did you feel? After watching, you'll use this to build an empathy map, stepping into the perspective of someone in the film. The goal is to move from learning about to feeling with. That's the power of environmental justice storytelling. The YouTube video titled "What is Environmental Justice?" https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=y8chsr5j6u offers a concise introduction to the concept of environmental justice. It explains how environmental justice addresses the fair distribution of environmental benefits and burdens, ensuring that no group of people, especially marginalized communities, bears a disproportionate share of negative environmental consequences. The video linked in the presentation highlights real-world examples where communities have faced environmental injustices, such as exposure to hazardous waste, pollution, and lack of access to clean air and water. It emphasizes the importance of inclusive decision-making processes and equitable policies that protect all communities, regardless of race, income, or nationality. Next is empathy mapping. This empathy mapping exercise trains you to truly consider another's point of view, a vital step in inclusive and ethical environmental action. An empathy map is a tool used to gain a deeper understanding of users by visualizing their thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and motivations. It's a way to step into a user's shoes and understand their experience. Key components of an empathy map. An empathy map typically consists of 4 quadrants. Says. This quadrant captures the user's direct quotes and statements about their experiences, thoughts, and feelings. Thinks. This quadrant explores the user's internal thoughts and beliefs, often inferred from their behavior and statements. Does. This quadrant focuses on the user's actions, behaviors, and how they interact with the product or service. Feels. This quadrant explores the user's emotional state, including their feelings, frustrations, and motivations. Example. Imagine you're designing a new online grocery delivery service. An empathy map might look like this. User persona, busy professional, young adult. Says, I need quick and easy grocery delivery, I don't have time to go to the store. Thinks, I'm tired of wasting time on grocery shopping, I want to control my budget and avoid impulse buys. Does, orders groceries online frequently, uses meal prep apps, follows a budget plan. Feels, frustrated by grocery store trips, stressed about meal prep, eager to find a convenient solution. How to use an empathy map. Gather information, conduct user interviews, surveys, and observe user behavior. Identify key insights, analyze the gathered data and identify patterns in user behavior, thoughts, and feelings. Create the map, organize the information into the 4 quadrants of the empathy map. Analyze and refine, use the empathy map to identify user needs, pain points, and opportunities for improvement. Empathy isn't just for humans, it's a mindset that can extend to animals, plants, ecosystems, and even future generations. When we practice empathy toward non-human life, we begin to understand the Earth not as a collection of resources, but as a community of living beings, each with value and agency. This approach challenges the human-centered mindset that often dominates environmental thinking. It invites us to listen to nature, to imagine what a tree experiences, how a river suffers when polluted, or how a species feels when its habitat is lost. Empathy helps us move from seeing nature as scenery to recognizing it as kin, something we are deeply connected to and responsible for. In this module, you'll explore deep ecology, the belief that all life has intrinsic worth, beyond human benefit. The rights of nature, legal and ethical frameworks that recognize ecosystems as entities with rights. Intergenerational empathy, caring for the future beings, human and non-human, affected by our actions today. By cultivating empathy toward non-human life, we shift from a model of dominance and control to one of care and coexistence. This is not only more ethical, it's essential for true sustainability. This week, you'll go for a mindful walk in nature, then write a journal entry or short letter from the perspective of a non-human being, a river, a tree, an animal. What does it see, feel, remember? Nature voice writing shifts our perspective and builds kinship. This exercise helps us listen more closely and act more responsibly, because what we empathize with, we protect. This activity invites you to imagine and write from the perspective of a non-human entity in nature, such as a tree, a river, a mountain, or an animal. By doing so, you practice empathy and deepen your connection to the natural world. Instructions. 1. Spend a few quiet minutes in or thinking about nature. 2. Choose a non-human being to write as. It could be a plant, animal, element, or ecosystem. 3. Write a short piece, journal entry, poem, letter, or monologue, from its perspective. 4. Include its feelings, memories, concerns, and message to humans. Guiding questions. What does this being experience every day? What has changed in its environment? What emotions might it feel? What would it want to tell us? Here's a creative and thoughtful example for the nature voice writing activity, where the participant writes from the perspective of a non-human entity, in this case, a tree. From the old oak. I've been standing here for 84 winters. I've watched your children grow beneath my branches. I've held birds in my limbs and squirrels in my hollows. I breathed in your carbon and given back air that fills your lungs. But lately, I feel tired. The stream I used to drink from runs dry in summer. The ground is harder than it used to be. There are fewer bees. Fewer songs. I miss the quiet. The days before machines roared and the skies dimmed. Still, I hold on. My roots stretch deep, remembering better times. You are part of me, even if you've forgotten. I don't need saving, I need remembering. Sit with me. Breathe with me. Let's heal together. This week, we focus on storytelling, one of the most powerful empathy tools we have. While facts are important, stories are what move people. Stories give faces to problems and hearts to solutions. We'll explore different storytelling methods, from spoken word and written narratives to visual storytelling like photos and short videos. You'll create a 3-minute personal story about your connection to nature or an environmental issue that matters to you. Then, you'll share it with your peers for reflection and feedback. Storytelling not only builds empathy in others, it helps you understand and express your own values with clarity and emotion. Facts alone don't move people, stories do. In week 4, we focus on storytelling as a powerful empathy tool. You'll explore how personal narratives, visual storytelling, and indigenous knowledge can inspire action more effectively than charts or graphs. You'll create and share a 3-minute story, in any format, about your relationship to nature or a local environmental issue. Then, you'll give and receive feedback in peer discussion. This activity is about honesty, vulnerability, and creativity. Stories have the power to humanize climate change and bring distant issues closer to the heart. In this activity, participants are invited to craft and share a short story, about 3 minutes long, that explores their personal relationship with nature or an environmental issue that has impacted them. This can be done as a video, audio recording, blog post, or written narrative. The format isn't as important as the emotional truth and clarity of the story. To help learners get started, I'll provide a sample story, The Stream That Disappeared, which shows how a small, personal memory can reflect a much larger issue, like environmental loss and community identity. I'll also share a template with guiding prompts. These include questions like, what natural place or memory stands out to you? What changed? How did it affect you? What message would you like to share? Encourage participants to speak from the heart. This isn't about perfect writing or production, it's about authentic voice. Once they've shared their story, they'll have the chance to offer and receive peer feedback with empathy and encouragement. The goal here is twofold: to practice storytelling as a tool for environmental engagement, and to connect with others through lived experience. On the slide, you'll see an example, a 3-minute story titled The Stream That Disappeared. It's a personal reflection on environmental loss that's simple, emotional, and relatable. As you read or listen to this story, notice how it begins with a vivid memory, transitions into loss, and ends with a personal call to action. That's the heart of environmental storytelling, making big issues feel close, human, and emotionally meaningful. Below the example is a storytelling template with 6 prompts. These questions are designed to help participants craft their own story, whether they prefer to write, record a video, or simply speak from notes. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just needs to be honest. Encourage learners to pick a moment that truly moved them. It could be joyful, painful, or even quiet. This is their chance to express what nature means to them, why they care, and what they hope others will feel. In week 5, we turn empathy into action. This week is about turning empathy into meaningful action. We've spent time exploring our emotional connection to nature, listening to others' experiences, and reflecting deeply. Now it's time to take that insight and design something with impact. Empathic action means acting with people, not for them. It involves listening before leading, including diverse voices, and designing solutions that consider emotional and cultural context. In this module, learners begin planning a group or individual project. It could be a community cleanup, a social media campaign, a workshop for children, anything that addresses a real-world environmental issue through a human-centered lens. We also introduce conflict-sensitive communication. Why? Because even the most well-intentioned actions can create friction. Practicing empathy means recognizing that people see the world differently, and that's not a barrier, it's a resource. The activities this week guide students to plan their projects step by step, focusing not just on impact, but on inclusivity, sustainability, and kindness. You'll design a project, campaign, or initiative rooted in empathy. It could involve awareness raising, policy engagement, or community building. You'll also learn how to communicate in ways that are inclusive and nonviolent. Great environmental work is emotionally intelligent. Empathy helps you understand people's barriers to action, and meet them with patience and care. This activity is where we bring everything together. After weeks of reflection, storytelling, and learning about environmental justice, learners will now design a small-scale project that puts empathy into action. The planning template breaks the process into clear steps. Start by encouraging participants to choose an issue that feels personal or local, something they care about deeply. That emotional connection will help guide their decisions and keep the project authentic. In the Empathy Insight section, we ask, who is affected by this issue? What do their experiences and emotions tell us? This is where learners begin practicing design with empathy, not just with good intentions. Then, we talk about inclusive design. Who's involved? Who might be left out if we're not careful? Empathic projects aim to amplify voices that are often unheard. The next piece is conflict-sensitive communication. Every project will encounter tension, different opinions, limitations, or resistance. Here, we help learners think ahead about how to handle that in a way that respects others and maintains trust. Finally, the plan includes logistics, steps, timelines, support, and reflection. It's not about perfection. It's about showing that empathy isn't just a feeling, it's a strategy for change. Welcome to the final stage of our journey, where all the insights, emotions, and creativity we've explored come together in your own project. This final project is more than just a task, it's a way for you to take what you've learned and apply it to a real-world context. Your job is to design and present a small-scale, empathy-based campaign or project that responds to an environmental issue you care about. It should address a real environmental challenge. It must integrate multiple perspectives, especially voices often left out. And most importantly, it should show how empathy shaped your approach, your storytelling, your design. Today, each of you will present your project to the group. You'll walk us through the issue you chose, who is affected, what action you designed, and how you applied what we've learned about empathy, inclusion, and emotional awareness. I also invite you to reflect. What challenged you during this process? What surprised or moved you? How has your understanding of empathy changed? And how will you carry these lessons forward in your life or work? As an example, we saw how one group created a living mural based on the memories of elderly residents who missed nature in the city. It started with a simple planting idea but evolved through listening and connection. That's the power of empathy in action. Remember, this isn't about perfection. It's about process, connection, and care. Your project, however big or small, matters because it comes from a place of empathy. The video titled Environmental Awareness Campaign with the link in this presentation is a concise and impactful piece designed to raise awareness about environmental issues. It highlights the importance of individual and collective actions in preserving our planet. The video emphasizes key messages such as reducing waste, conserving natural resources, and promoting sustainable practices. This video is often utilized in educational settings to initiate discussions on environmental responsibility and to inspire students to engage in eco-friendly initiatives. For instance, it has been incorporated into lesson plans that encourage students to identify environmental problems within their schools and develop campaigns to address them, fostering a sense of responsibility and proactive behavior among learners. If you're interested in using this video for educational or campaign purposes, the creator has granted permission for its use, provided appropriate credit is given. This final project isn't just an assignment. It's a seed, something you can plant, nurture, and grow in your own community. An empathy-based action plan for environmental issues focuses on fostering a connection with nature and understanding the impact of human actions on the environment to inspire pro-environmental behavior. This involves promoting empathy through education, storytelling, and creating opportunities for nature immersion, ultimately leading to increased engagement in conservation efforts. Here's a more detailed breakdown of how to implement an empathy-based action plan. 1. Fostering empathy through education and storytelling. Environmental education. Integrate empathy-building activities into environmental education programs, such as nature walks, discussions about the interconnectedness of ecosystems, and exploring the impact of environmental issues on different species and communities. Storytelling. Share personal stories and narratives about the environment and its impact, highlighting the human connection to nature and the consequences of environmental damage. This could include stories about endangered species, the effects of climate change on local communities, or the beauty and wonder of the natural world. Media. Utilize films, documentaries, and other media to create emotional connections with environmental issues and inspire pro-environmental action. 2. Creating opportunities for nature immersion. Nature walks and workshops. Organize nature walks, workshops, and other activities that allow individuals to experience nature firsthand and develop a deeper understanding of its importance. Outdoor education programs. Develop outdoor education programs that encourage connection with nature and promote stewardship. Community gardens. Support community gardens and other green spaces that provide opportunities for people to connect with nature and engage in sustainable practices. 3. Building a sense of shared responsibility. Community engagement. Involve communities in environmental projects, such as cleanup initiatives, tree planting, and habitat restoration, to foster a sense of shared responsibility for the environment. Collaboration. Work with local organizations, schools, and businesses to create a collaborative environment for environmental action. Advocacy. Support policies and initiatives that protect the environment and promote sustainability. 4. Measuring and evaluating impact. Tracking pro-environmental behavior. Monitor changes in individual and community behavior related to environmental stewardship, such as recycling rates, energy consumption, and participation in conservation efforts. Feedback and evaluation. Gather feedback from participants and stakeholders to assess the effectiveness of the empathy-based action plan and make necessary adjustments. By focusing on empathy, individuals can develop a deeper connection with nature and be motivated to take action to protect the environment. This can lead to. This example demonstrates how empathy can completely transform the way we approach environmental action. The student team initially saw a lack of green space at their school and thought, let's plant something. But after listening to an older classmate and speaking with local elders, they realized the deeper issue wasn't just environmental, it was emotional and cultural. People missed feeling connected to nature. The concrete walls weren't just visually dull, they felt lifeless. One person even described city life as airless. That word stuck with the team. So instead of a simple planting initiative, they co-created a vertical garden mural. But it wasn't just plants, they added tiles with quotes and drawings inspired by real stories. That's where empathy came in, designing with the community, not just for it. The project created a space for beauty, memory, and intergenerational bonding, all in the middle of a paved schoolyard. It's a powerful example of how listening deeply can uncover needs we might overlook. And it shows that small actions, like growing a walled garden, can carry deep meaning when rooted in shared experience. This course is not just about learning information, it's about transforming the way we relate to the world around us. By the end of the program, participants will have a deeper understanding of empathy's role in environmental change, not just as a feeling, but as a strategy for social and ecological repair. They'll also gain practical tools for storytelling, one of the most powerful ways to engage people emotionally, whether through words, images, or video. Importantly, they'll be able to design solutions that are human-centered and emotionally intelligent. That means thinking about who is affected, how people feel, and what creates real inclusion. We also introduce the idea of empathy toward non-human life, understanding that nature isn't just a backdrop to human life, but part of our ethical circle. Finally, learners will leave with the ability and confidence to take community action, no matter how small, using empathy as both a compass and a method. This course is designed to reach a broad but intentional audience, people who care about the planet and about people. First, it's ideal for educators and teachers who want to bring empathy and environmental themes into their classrooms in a meaningful way. They'll gain tools to teach not just facts, but feelings, the emotional side of sustainability. Second, it's great for students, especially those in high school, university, or youth leadership programs. Many young people feel overwhelmed by environmental problems. This course helps them express that through storytelling and take small but impactful action. It's also relevant to NGO workers and community activists, especially those working in multicultural or socially vulnerable settings. These participants often see the emotional and social side of climate change firsthand, and need new ways to engage communities with care. Community leaders and volunteers benefit too. Especially if they're building local projects, hosting workshops, or simply wanting to create change that respects everyone's voice. And finally, this course is open to anyone who believes in compassionate environmental action. That could be artists, scientists, parents, or anyone who feels a deep connection to nature and wants to make a difference, not just with knowledge, but with empathy. As we conclude, I want to leave you with this message. Empathy is often seen as something passive or secondary, a soft skill. But in truth, it's one of the most powerful tools we have for social and environmental transformation. Empathy helps us listen to people who've been ignored, value ecosystems that can't speak for themselves, and design solutions that heal, not just solve. Let this course be a reminder that change doesn't only start with data, it starts with connection. Thank you for choosing this course. Disclaimer: the European Commission's support for the production of this publication does not constitute an endorsement of the contents, which reflect the views only of the authors, and the Commission cannot be held responsible for any use which may be made of the information contained therein.